This is BobAgain Carney Jr., and I'm here with Jeff Johnson, the Republican nominee for governor. And I have really just one question to pose, but probably a little background before that. You want to explain what your issues are with Southwest Light Rail. But the question that I want to pose is, what can you and will you do as governor to either stop or reroute Southwest Light Rail?
Well, the background, as you mentioned, Bob, is that I have always said about trains, if you can show me a cost-benefit analysis that makes sense, I'm all ears. In other words, is it going to relieve enough congestion in comparison to the, in this case, $1.6, $1.7 billion cost, and then another 20 to 25 million annual subsidy? Southwest doesn't do that, and in fact, I've never seen the cost-benefit analysis because they know it's not going to relieve congestion. So, for me, that's my problem with Southwest. It's less about the route, and it's more about the fact that it just doesn't make any sense for taxpayers, and we could take that money and do a lot of other things, including rapid bus transit, and certainly do some work on our roads and all over the state of Minnesota, but particularly in the Southwest Metro.
What can you and what would you do as governor to stop Southwest Light Rail?
You know, it truly depends upon how far we are, you know, how far along we are when I am sworn in as governor next year, and you kind of have to make that logical choice of, if the thing's almost built, does it make sense to stop it and say we're not going to do anything, versus if, we've only spent a small amount of money. So I think it's probably more realistic to say wouldn't happen, because we'll be not nearly as far into it as we will be on Southwest. But I kind of have to see how far along we are before I make that decision as governor.
Hypothetically, let's assume that there are delays, and there is a pending lawsuit apparently at this point. If we're not very far along, what kinds of things can you do, and how would you approach stopping it?
Well, I mean, you'd have to convince the legislature to stop it as governor, and so I'd have to convince the DFL Senate, because we're going to have a DFL Senate. We may or may not have a Republican or a DFL House, but the DFL Senate, that's going to take some work, and it's going to take some work on my part to talk to people about whether this is truly worth the tremendous cost or not. And so that would be my job. I can't, a governor doesn't just get to say no, especially once the allocation has already been made by the legislature. But my job would be to sit down with the leadership in the Senate and try to figure out if there's a better way to spend the money.
If the allocation's not made, if the money's not appropriate, do you think that alone could stop it?
It could. If the money's not there, the money's not there. I mean, if that extra 10, the state's going to put in 10%. And if that 10% isn't there, that's, still, what, $170 million, $160 million. So they would have to find a different source for that amount of money, which is a pretty big chunk.
Yeah. Do you think there's any possibility that the County Transit Improvements Board will not approve the 30%? I've heard that there's some discussion that Dakota may be bailing out, and I understand any county can leave before a project launches, and their taxpayers are not on the hook for that. Yeah. Do you think that might happen?
I don't know. I'm not on the CTIB, so I don't know what their internal discussions have been. I'd be surprised if that happens, but anything is possible.
And again, assuming that there are delays, what can you do in terms of appointing a new Met Council?
Well, the governor gets to appoint a new Met Council. I mean, every member of the Met Council is appointed by the governor, and my goal would be to start over with the Met Council. My plan would be to appoint people who have a little more of a, match my philosophy a little more about what the proper role of that organization is. I think they're far afield from where they should be right now.
Real good. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.